gosh, I think it's 9. It'll be like 9 years in August. So a long time. I've been doing this for a while. And I would say like over that period of time, have had the opportunity to work with like thousands of engineers. I've completely lost count. But a lot of that very much like hands-on in the like interview preparation process. So basically that's been working with folks from like the very beginning of their interview process to the very end. And so that's like helping them with just understanding where they're at in the job search process, getting a handle on their narrative, sort of bringing that all together into helping them put together like a compelling resume, using that resume then to help put together just answers to behavioral, situational, like icebreaker interview questions from there, helping to support on the actual like technical side of it, although I'm a bit far removed from that at this point, but used to do a lot of coaching on like whiteboarding when that was more of a thing, when you actually had to like go and write on a whiteboard in a on-site interview. But like helping with like the data structure and algorithm side of things. And then from there, helping to like get people paid more money, right? So once folks did start to land offers, how do you actually like go through the negotiation process and get yourself paid more, even if you maybe only have one offer on the table? So a lot of experience, I guess, just to say through all aspects of the technical interview, just like preparation process, and happy to share uh, my sort of like thoughts and experience there with everybody here today.
Thank you, David. One more question for you. What was your idea or thought that came into your mind when you first thought of starting ApplyPass as a service to people?
Um, I guess I would say like the thing there, the idea there that really like came to mind in starting the service here is just, especially on the, and working with so many engineers, especially on the side of like, once helping people get their like sort of like background and how to communicate that in order, resume in order. The thing that folks need to do after that is apply to jobs, right? And I would be working with folks, providing them a lot of resources, and doing this for a long time, working with a lot of engineers. I didn't find all the resources, but I had folks help me sort of like crowdsource resources together to, I'm going to mute everybody here. Lewis, if you want to just get muted. Thank you. Um, but providing lots of resources to folks to then use this new resume, use this updated LinkedIn to apply to jobs. And I would work with folks and let them know like, hey, like the volume of jobs that you need to apply to is going to be a lot more than you think. And a lot of times like coming into it, I let people know you need to be really applying to like 25 at a bare minimum, but like let's be real, it's going to need to be a lot more than that jobs per week. And that was like an overwhelming number for a lot of folks who thought that, or maybe they're coming into it, they're applying to like 5 jobs a week, right? Or 1 job a day or something of that nature. And I watched this go on for a very long time, where I would provide all these resources, provide these sort of strategies for applying, and I don't know, maybe like 5 to 10% of the people that I worked with really like ran with it. And then for the other 90%, it was like some degree of actually following the advice. But what I saw is that for the folks who really like applied in volume, following the strategies that I was providing on like where to go look as well, they saw like massive return on the time that was put in there in terms of getting more interviews, getting more opportunities, building confidence, getting paid more at the end once they had generally multiple offers on the table. And after just going through the coaching process for long enough and seeing the same sort of roadblocks continue to be encountered by engineers, folks in tech that I was working with, I was like, there's got to be something better that can be done about this. And rather than asking people maybe to go apply to jobs on their own, why don't we just do it for you? Why don't I just do it for you, I guess, or have software that does it for you? Um, so that was really the impetus there is let's just like remove what can be like a stressful, time consuming process for folks and just have something else do it where it has no like emotions or time tied into it, and then provide and give that back to all the engineers that I'm working with so that they can network more, prep for interviews more, like build confidence in other ways more, and like ultimately hopefully have a faster, smoother, less stressful job search. So I would say that would be sort of like the general impetus here for starting things.
Awesome. Thank you for that. David, we have one question by Pratik. He's asking, what are the upcoming steps after being enrolled to ApplyPass?
That is a good question here, Pratik. I guess it depends on what step of the onboarding process that you're in. This is like obviously we're like pretty new into this process still at the moment. Like we've kind of like soft launched since like December, January, and so the onboarding's like continue to evolve and will continue to evolve. But right now, as it stands, after being enrolled, I guess there's like the initial like onboarding steps. I think it's like a 3-step process there. Once your background is passed there, like we don't actually technically work with everybody. We really want to make sure that you have a background that we feel is going to get the most value out of the product system here that we've put together, so that way you're not spinning your wheels wondering what's happening. But once your background is passed there, there'll be an email follow-up that's provided to you where there's going to be an additional, I think, 5 steps that need to be answered. Those 5 steps are like pretty important because they help like we're asking you all these questions to help build your profile, because this is how we actually then answer questions for you on your behalf. So it'll be like filling out those steps there. And then once that process is completed in terms of answering those questions, if you're on one of the like premium plans with us, you will then have your resume go into our kind of like optimization process where we'll basically re-optimize your, I don't know if re-optimize is the right, that's not really a word. We'll optimize your resume with keywords, job titles, rewriting it in a format that I didn't really develop it, but continued to hone and I guess add my own flavor to, which now we have sort of like our system helping to implement on your behalf. But basically rewriting your resume, reformatting it into templates that we've seen work through ATSs, and then at that point in time, we'll start applying for you. That usually takes somewhere between like 1 to 3 days in the completion of the second step of the onboarding process. I don't know if that answers your question, Pratik. I see you nodding here. Thank you for having your
Yes,
camera on.
yes,
Awesome.
yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. We also have Irina asking us, that's a great question, actually. ApplyPass manages to apply to so many jobs and how it answers tricky questions in the process, such as tell me something unique about yourself or provide 3 references. How does that work?
That is a good question, Irina. So we've set the system up, we've trained the system up. We have like basically a set of like proprietary fine-tuned models that are doing the answering for us. And this is where, like I was saying, filling out your profile as accurately and completely is pretty important. And so for answering, like, tell me something unique about yourself, like the models that we put together is going to generate something based on the set of information that you've provided to us. We've set it up so that it doesn't just start making things up. So that would be how it would go about answering that question. And then for the one with providing 3 references, any questions like that where it doesn't have like an answer, it's not going to just make up 3 random strangers. It will just say, we'll provide that at a later date in the interview process, or like basically something they're pushing off the question. I don't know if that answers things for you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. We have another question for you. In your experience, David, what is the best way for a mid-senior, like let's say someone who has 3 years of experience, to prepare for getting a job at a FAANG company? What are some of the key points or the gotchas?
Gotchas. Yeah, I guess like some of the like pitfalls, I guess to say here. There's like a long and short answer to that. I'm going to go with like the shorter one. But in my experience, the best way to go about like preparing for it could be a FAANG interview or any sort of interview with a like company that's going to have like a pretty standardized interview process where you have like a recruiter call generally, then it's going to be a technical screen doing some sort of 45-minute data structure and algorithm round, followed by Maybe it's another technical screen, but likely then the final round, which is going to be a multi-step process, either in one day or multiple days, where you'll have like maybe 2 to 3 data structure algorithm rounds, maybe a system design round, and then maybe like 1 to 2 behavioral rounds. But the best way to prepare for that is, I guess, one is just starting to put together like a clear, like actionable study plan. So, I mean, I think everyone here has heard of platforms such as LeetCode or HackerRank, or now I'm seeing like NeetCode, which is like a free-ish version of a lot of these, or Algo Expert or whatever it is. But really starting to like spend time every single day, like this becomes like a daily practice of sorts, practicing data structures and algorithms, and trying to do so from like a topic-based approach. So like Monday, I'm going to work on graphs. Tuesday will be trees. Wednesday will be dynamic programming. Thursday, recursion, whatever it is, right? But like having a focus for that day in terms of really starting to nail down the patterns for these algorithms and getting comfortable and recognizing them. And then in doing that practice too, just making sure that as you're going through the problems, like you're sort of scaling yourself up over time. So that means like not just diving into the hardest ones and hitting your head against the wall, but like recognizing there's going to be some sort of starting point, then that's okay. And maybe that's like the brutally easy ones as you work towards the brutally hard. Um, and then in doing that practice, just really making sure that you're not looking up the answers. And so, a senior engineer that I used to work with a lot in the past, who was like, a coach that I would collaborate with, how he got really good at algorithms was just basically in like solving questions every day. It was, sitting down, trying to solve it, usually in like an hour, hour and a half block. If he couldn't come to the answer, he'd just get up and walk away, and then he would come back again later and for the next block of time that he was going to work on it. And he would just keep working through that process until he was able to come to a solution. And then at that point, going and looking to see how other folks maybe approached it in a more optimal way. But what that really helped him do was internalize both like how to recognize the types of questions that he was working through, and also how to start to like come up with his own like approaches and I guess like designs for solving these types of algorithms. So it's like having a structured approach weekly in like actually just practicing every day, making sure that that practice is actually effective, where you're not short circuiting your learning and just looking up answers to things. And then, I mean, you're going to need to do practice as well on the behavioral side too. Like some companies weight that hot more than others, but if we're thinking like big tech, like Amazon would be like on the end of the spectrum, that's like more caring about behavioral than, say, I don't know, like Google, for example, but also needing to think through like anecdotal, like past stories that you might have in work environments, and starting to like script those out, like at least to some degree. It doesn't need to be like an exact movie script, but at least like talking points that'll help you remember what you want to share. And I like to think about it this way of like tagging, I don't know, like tagging themes to each one of those questions, right? When you get asked a behavioral or situational interview question, maybe you've never like quite heard that question before, but generally if you like think about what that question is trying to address, you'll realize there's like a theme associated with that. That could be like conflict resolution. It could be um how you approach problem solving. It could be how you approach collaboration. But like these would be the types of themes they're trying to address. So like tagging your stories to themes, so that when you realize you're being asked a question related to one of those particular things, you have like a story ready that's top of mind that you can answer. So it'd be preparing for the behavioral side of things that way. And then from just like a high level strategic approach, it's like not diving into the companies that you are most excited about first, just given the fact that like interviewing is a skill. It takes time to practice, not only your own, but like practice in actual live interviews. When you're like in a Zoom room like this and somebody is staring across from you with your camera, and you have to like talk and type at the same time as you're like trying to do something reasonably complex with your brain, that can be nerve-wracking. And so it's just making sure that you are taking interviews with other companies first, and even really like trying to take interviews with other companies that sort of like move you in the direction of being prepared for like a FANG type interview. So that might be like taking interviews with sort of like random companies that you haven't really heard of before, just to begin with, to get comfortable with the process as you start to see yourself improving there. Starting to take interviews with companies that are maybe more akin to like FANG type interview, but isn't like a FANG company. So I like always thought of them as like tier 2 companies. That could be, I don't know, what would that be, like DoorDash or Workday or Salesforce or something like that, right? Where it's going to have like a similar style to the interview, but maybe the degree of difficulty isn't the same, or it's like slightly less. And then as you get more comfortable with those types of interviews with those types of companies, eventually being like, all right, I think I've like done enough practice here, both on my own and in the live process, to go tackle FANG. So I guess that was a longer answer here, but that would be like my high level strategy for approaching that. Hopefully that answers your question here, Sabri.
He does have a follow-up question. Are there any top tools or resources you recommend for prep for these FANG type interviews? Any structures or templates you want to recommend to share?
I mean, just as a starting point, if you're just trying to like dive in and practice data structures and algorithms, I mentioned a few just like free to like paid resources. That's just like a practice platform to just like start with. That would be one that I would definitely recommend for just like data structures and algorithms. If you're trying to start to like learn system design, at least from like the ground up, there's other like reasonably good resources out there. There's like the Don Martin System Design Primer. There's another site called High Scalability that can help to just get yourself familiarized with all of that. And then I don't know, I guess as a plug for ApplyPass, I know that's how you all heard about us anyways. I know in the community right now, we're putting together more courses for everybody here in terms of like pulling in content that we already have put together around like system design, algorithms, like actually like approaching solving questions from a more uh, uh, like standardized, systematic, like pattern recognition process. So there'll be more of that content that's showing up in the community too. And then from just like a practice perspective, right? And like getting yourself out there to have more opportunities and like practicing in real interviews. I mean, that's like applying to lots of jobs. You can either do it on your own or you can work with us and we'll send out hundreds of applications a week. That would be my recommendations here.
Great. Prateek has one more question for you.
Yeah.
What are the most significant ways to target companies for networking, and what do you think should be the approach?
Where are these questions? Oh, here we go.
Is
What
that in
should
chat?
be, yeah, thank you. So what should be the most significant way to target companies for networking, and what should be the approach? I guess I don't fully understand when you say, maybe you can help me here, Prateek. When you say the most
Uh,
significant way to target, what do you mean?
yeah, so like the one major amount of time which is being utilized is by applications, right? So that thing is being taken by ApplyPass that you are
Totally.
applying to most of the companies. Yeah.
Yep.
So so we have some time, so we would of course utilize the time in interview preparation as well as networking, since when we network with the companies, it gets our chances and probability more if we have like someone in the hiring team or in the particular team then. So it would be
Yep.
better to network with someone, right? With the
I
companies.
absolutely, and I mean, like honestly, that's probably going to be the highest return. I would say like you're going to have the like highest percent return of like getting a yes, right? Whereas, maybe one in, I don't know, like 100, let's just say, applications is as a yes. If you were to send those out, it might be like 1 in 10, right?
Mhm.
For networking messages if you do it right. So, all right, I think maybe I kind of understand what you're getting at here. So I guess you're asking like
How should
significant
I
ways to,
target the companies? So
okay,
based on
so
my
well,
profile, yeah.
well, I mean, there's a couple of ways. Um, I'll provide two. I guess like one, you should have like, and I recommend this for everybody, like coming up with your own like list of companies that you're like most interested in, basically like either like dream companies or like the step down from dream, like pretty awesome companies that you're most interested in. And I would have those like as a list and start to like try to find decision makers that are at the company. That could be like, I guess as a starting point, like recruiters, could be other engineers, or if you're feeling brave, it could be like hiring managers too. Um, but I would be starting to like compile lists for all of those. And then what I usually recommend folks to do, you can try sending LinkedIn messages. I don't know what maybe their LinkedIn message inbox looks like, but I know at least for mine, I have so many messages. It's like, I can't even, it's like overwhelming. I don't really read everything that comes in there. If I see a message, it's because I randomly got lucky to see someone's message and then I'll like write a reply. And I think that's the case for a lot of folks that are in positions of hiring right now on LinkedIn. And so what I usually recommend for people to do is try to figure out what their work email is. Like usually work emails are like, there's tools that do that. I think there's like Hunter.io is like one that could do this,
Yeah,
but
there are lots of tools where we
yeah,
can find the emails.
figure out what the their work email combination is, right? Is it like first initial dot last name, first name dot last name, is like something like that, right? And then I would have a like template of sort message that you're ready to send, but that template shouldn't read like, dear sir, dear madam, like
By their
here's
name
my
and
resume. You sound
particular
great.
job.
Yeah,
Mhm.
can you please give me a job? Thank you. I wouldn't do that. I would try to like add some sort of like personal element into here, right? Like knowing that you're like emailing them directly. It doesn't need to be a super long message. It can be reasonably short, concise, to the point. You can provide your resume at the end and just see what happens. But I think you have a lot higher chance of being seen in sending out an email that way, and that I don't get a lot of emails. I'll say that to my work emails on people
Mhm.
asking for jobs. That doesn't happen very often. So if I do see it, I'll generally read it. Whether or not I respond, depends on sort of what came, like what it is. But regardless, I will see it. And that also gives you an opportunity to put together your own like follow-up sequence too, right? Of like after 3 days, send a follow-up. After 7 days, send a follow-up, and then give up, generally speaking, right? But usually like the rule of thumb is like 2 follow-ups within like 3 to then 7 days, and then decide
Got
that maybe that's a dead lead. But that would be how I'd be targeting it. If they're companies that you're interested in, you can apply that same exact approach though to companies that we applied to for you. You have that list in your dashboard. You can just go pick the ones that you're like, all right, this is a really good match. This is a really good match. This one,
Mhm.
I mean, there's going to be plenty to be looking at, right? And then you can be
Yeah.
following up on those two. And then the only twist you can add to the message is like, hey, I applied to this role.
Mhm.
Here's a bit more about maybe like, is it possible to set up a chat? Is it possible for you to maybe like send over some sort of assessment for me to demonstrate that I'm
Mhm.
going to be like competent here in the position? But that's how I would approach this.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
We have another question coming in from Arena. She's heard advice that you need to have more than one version of the resume so you can apply to different job types, each one with its own suitable version. Do you think it is worthwhile advice? And do you plan to have anything like this in ApplyPass?
Sorry, I'm looking for the question. All right. I heard advice to find more than one version of a resume, apply to different job types. Each one is, I both agree and disagree with that advice, so I can explain. Um, if you're going for jobs, like say you have like a skill set in, I guess, like general software engineering, you're like comfortable with that, backend software engineering, but you've also like got like a reasonable skill set in machine learning engineering / like data science, right? Where there's like enough of a difference there in terms of what's going on and maybe the skills that you're going to want to be highlighting or the projects that you're going to want to be highlighting. In a situation like that, I would recommend having 2 different resumes to target those 2 different types of roles. However, if you're going for like a general software engineering role and a full stack role, or even like general software and like front end, or like some sort of analog of just like software engineer, I wouldn't have two different resumes that are put together. Ideally, what you've done in putting your resume together is had like the relevant keywords related to the like technologies that are going to be like core to the types of roles that you're targeting already weaved into all of your bullet points and content, and likewise having the job titles that are going to be most relevant to those types of roles that you're targeting already like built into the roles that you're demonstrating in your experience and project section, where I like tweaking things would be so minor is like not even really worth doing, nor do I think that's actually going to like yield any difference in the results. So that would be when I would both have two different resumes versus not. I would say in like most cases though, for most folks, I'm unless you have like two wildly different things that you're targeting, just like one well done, well optimized resume should be enough.
All right.
But
Thank you very much.
but I guess to your second question here, yes, that is on the roadmap though for like folks who are like wanting software and then maybe like data analyst or machine learning engineer, or like, you know, our goal is to like branch even like beyond software over time. Yeah, in situations like that, it is on the roadmap to build it in where, you know, we will have resumes that are like more directly specifically targeted to the domains that you're selecting, especially if those domains like are going to vary in terms of what it is that you're looking for. So that is something that will eventually be built out and integrated into the ApplyPass system. It's something we've been talking about.
We have one more last question that we'd like to ask from Marshall. How would you approach moving between two different industries where expertise and tools are different and do not match? For instance, a data engineer from quant trading moving to be a data engineer at a FANG. What are your thoughts?
Good question here, Marshall. So how would you approach moving between two different industries where expertise and tools are much different and do not match? So it sounds like though, Marshall, just to be clear, you're still targeting like data engineering roles, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, in that particular case, like I don't think your resume is going to need to be wildly different in that situation. I think you just need to make sure that if you're moving from like, what is this, like quant data engineer to data engineer at Fang, and like you know that there's going to be a like different set of tools that maybe you're already familiar with, I would be having that all needs to be weaved into your resume, so at least you're going to be hitting on the keywords to move through ATSs there. But you know, the title matching is still going to be the same, and so I definitely think you're going to still be noticed for those types of positions. So at least on like the resume side of things, like I don't think it's going to require like a huge change there in order to like position yourself for those particular roles. Is there like something more specific though that you're like getting at as it pertains to like moving between, or like moving, I guess, within data engineering from like one area of it in one type of company to another?
I guess, for instance, at Fangs, there's a focus on expertise in cloud systems, for instance, versus
Yep.
in quant trading where a lot is done on-prem.
On-prem in-house because of like security reasons, and they can't have the data floating elsewhere, correct?
Yes, and performance and co-location and stuff like that.
Do you have experience with like cloud related technologies?
Yes, but limited.
Okay. My recommendation there then is to just, same as I was saying there with like the resume, at least be highlighting what it is that you know. If it comes up in conversation, I would both speak to what it is that you do know, at least as it relates to the cloud technologies that you're speaking to. But But if you're like getting like a feeling that maybe like that's like not quite going deep enough, I'm guessing there's probably sort of like on-prem related experience, even if it's not using the exact cloud technology, where you've used something that was in-house to like previous roles that you have done, that you can also like speak to and saying like, hey, I haven't worked specifically with X, but I have done that same process with Y in my other company. And I'm like very confident in my ability to actually like still execute in this way, or at least get up to speed with this particular technology. That'd be one way to at least like speak to equivalence here.
Got it. Thank you.
And then the last thing I would say is, I mean, there's a lot of like AWS like certifications that you can start to dive into, or GCP certifications or Azure certifications, where you can like at least be in process with that as another thing that you can speak that you're to another thing that you can speak to that you're doing actively to get yourself up to speed with things.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you, David. And that's a wrap for our AMA. I request everyone to post their questions in the Get Advice or the general space in case you have still more questions coming in. We have David, we have other ApplyPass members and industry experts waiting to answer your questions. So please feel free to post in the community and we'll get back to you with the answers.
Yes, thank you everybody for
Everyone
joining in.
Irina, also congratulations on your very first interview and wishing you all the success.
Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining into the first, AMA here. Definitely appreciate all your time. And as Aline was saying, myself, other folks on the ApplyPass team will be like answering questions as they come up. So if there's like something else you had in mind there, just like please post it in the community. I'm going to be active in there on a daily basis. So I will definitely address your question once I see it. But thank you all, and hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday afternoon or evening or whatever time zone you're on.